So, good morning to everyone, and thanks for tuning in to part one of our new series, which is By the Book, Behind the Book. And in this series, what I'm trying to do is introduce you to our lovely authors that are part of By the Book, and to find a little bit more out about our authors and their story, and maybe what inspired them to write the book. And today we have Soraya joining us, and Soraya is author of Bacon from the Heart, which is just such a beautiful cookbook, and it's full of gluten-free recipes. And I'll hand you over to Soraya now to say hello and introduce herself. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel, very much. I'm honoured to be the first one and a little bit scared. But yeah, I'm Soraya. I run basically social media pages, both on Facebook and on Instagram, and I have a website, and it's called Cozy Bakes, and just started from the love of baking. And then I live in a house with several dietary requirements. I probably am very passionate about food anyway, so it probably, I was a good person to be in the house to have these issues, because I could find out about it. And I just wanted to be able to provide food and bakes and nice things for everybody, that everybody sat down and ate the same thing, and that the person who maybe was dairy-free, gluten-free, paleo, whatever, didn't have to sit over in the corner and isolate themselves from everybody else. So that was the reason. That was sort of what was triggering me just to produce recipes, online.
Wow. And when would you have started that?
I started that, actually officially started it probably shortly after I closed my other business. So it would have been around 2011 that I started a Facebook group and just started to make recipes and share them, just for people to try out at home. I think I just took I wanted to take the initial fear out of a recipe that perhaps somebody hadn't made before, find anything that I thought might be an issue, fix it, and then present it as a finished product that they could then go and do.
Yeah, because sometimes, I know myself anyway, baking is so daunting. I haven't started baking at all, and it just, I don't know why it seems daunting. So I suppose that's one of the objectives of the book, is to take the fear away from.
I think especially with baking generally, yes, some people approach baking as if it's a massively daunting task, and that's fine, because I would approach some other things with the same attitude as well. And I think that just to get over that, because all that can happen is that you just throw it out
or burn it.
Nothing bad is really going to happen at the end of the day. But I found maybe specifically people with dietary issues very much felt that baking was over for them, and a lot of these people would have loved baking. If you bake regularly, it actually does become a love affair. It really does. Oh, it really, really does. It's your close the door, go-to thing. But even before that happened with me, when my children were younger, it was an activity I did with my children. So it can always fit into either family or your own life in some way. So it was just to take that mystery, take that fear out of probably a huge unknown sector, whether it's gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, the gluten-free thing is a big industry now, in the sense that it is an issue for a lot of people. And, when people maybe get diagnosed with conditions, they may be a bit lost, and they may, be a bit sad as well that they have to cut out all these nice foods that we associate. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
No, and I think that's a huge issue that I have, is that, again, I go back. Yes, I was very lucky that I actually married a man who was already diagnosed celiac, and then my children had various diagnoses as well. But I think that the issue I'm finding with a lot of people on my page, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, newly diagnosed and basically perhaps given a booklet or a leaflet, and then just sent on their way, you
Yeah.
know, off you go. And I think that's, if you don't necessarily have an interest in food, whether it's cooking or baking, I think that's a really scary place to be.
Mm.
The supermarket shelves are inundated with gluten-free and all types of dietary products. But again, that was my issue. My issue was that I felt people can end up spending a huge amount of money on these products. From my liking, there's too much sugar and salt in them.
Mm-hmm.
They're highly refined and processed. So it's just trying to bring it back to what, is a slightly healthier way to bake, but making it easy and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So I really went out of my way when I was writing the book to make sure that the ingredients that I used in every single recipe, I don't think one ingredient is not available in a supermarket.
It's brilliant.
Try and make it easy for everybody.
Accessible.
Yeah, life's hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah, and you haven't overcomplicated it. Yeah. So if we were to kind of go back then to before you became an author or a baker, you might just give us a little bit of a background to what you did.
Yeah. So, baking and cooking has always been part of my life because I'm half Lebanese. So that's food is just part of it's part of love. It's what you do. But before I did that, I worked in market research. And then I had my children, and one of my children had a lot of health issues. So I opted to stay at home to mind her and be her carer. So I started then to do research and work from home. I did desktop publishing for health magazines and stuff. So I learned as I went along, and always had an interest in fashion and things like that. And I worked in fashion for a while as a younger person. So eventually then I jumped and I opened up my own shop. So that was a lesson, lots of lessons learned. I had probably 15 hats on one day. Learned a lot, but it was a great learning curve. And I loved just dealing with the people. I loved my customers, loved dealing with everybody, loved everything about it. And did that for 6 years and learned a lot. And then our situation changed with one of our children, and I had to give that up to be at home with her. And so I kept it up for about 2 years afterwards, just online. So again, learned a lot about social media and how it works, and PR and marketing, and just a little bit of dogged determination, and moseyed along that way. And then eventually with the way that retail has become, it's extremely difficult for any middle market retailer to work. So opted out, and then just took to baking more as a sort of a coping mechanism. And then it just that just grew and grew. Yeah, sort of organically grew, I suppose. Yeah.
No, it's great to see, because you've got a lovely Facebook group with almost, is it 2,000 in the group at this?
It's getting up there. Yeah, it's getting up there. It's about 1.6, I think, at the moment on Facebook. And then Instagram. Yeah, Instagram's over 1,000 followers, I think, at the moment. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't believe in, I think probably what's nice, what you mentioned about the community, is that I don't believe in having massive numbers. I believe in having the numbers that I have to be connected, to be engaged. To help them, to answer questions. So even though it's a smaller number and I may not have 5,000 followers, I can manage the ones that I have. And if there are more followers, that's wonderful. But it's organically grown. Nothing has been forced. So anyone that's there is there because they want to be. So that's great. Yeah,
brilliant. And so how much time then would you spend on social media each day? Or
yeah, depending, I think, on how much knowledge you have. There are websites that you can use so that you can schedule posts on Facebook and on Instagram, and on Twitter if you use Twitter as well. So you can schedule, so that I would say if you're going to schedule, you probably need to put an hour and a half aside and set that out and do it. If you're not, and you like to sort of go with the flow and perhaps be around a little bit more, I think that I would give it an hour in the morning maybe an hour in the afternoon, and then the evening does tend to be a lot busier because people have more time. So I wouldn't say work at it. I would say just have it so that you're aware of anyone asking questions, but don't be a slave. I did that for a while where I felt I had to answer everybody back instantly. And it's not good for you to do that. So, you know, no one's going to die if I don't answer a question about baking powder. And that's so that in my area, you know, if I'm busy, I'm busy, and that's fine. I will always answer the person back within about a day. Yeah.
Wow, that's very good. So you definitely take time then to disconnect and not always be plugged in. And the scheduling is a good idea, because that means if you have a week ahead where, you know, you don't want to be connected every day, you can do that ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It is important. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was saying to you earlier, I think your videos are very good. They're very creative. And, you know, I've seen some of them on Instagram and they're nice and short.
Yeah, that would be a key. I think that if you're doing videos, I encourage people to stick under, you know, if you can do 30 to 45 seconds, a minute is the max. I wouldn't do any more than that. People are just being you know, bombarded with so much stuff these days that to keep someone's attention for a full minute is an achievement. Yeah.
So if I was to go back then to your book, which is lovely and self-published, so I suppose when you had the book, did you have then, because, you know, it's been quite successful, and I saw a post that you actually got to 500 copies. I think that was a while ago, but congratulations. That's a nice milestone. So to do that, I suppose, on your own back is very good, because I actually read somewhere, you know, the average book might just sell 200 or 300 copies. You know, and you haven't had a publisher behind you. So did you have, I suppose, a strategy or a plan in order to sell your book? Were you going to sell it to your group? Did you have ideas outside that? I know you've been successful as well in getting into some, you know, high profile magazines and with your recipes. So, you know, you might just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love to say to you, you know, I had this wonderful strategy and I had this plan. Honestly, I sit here sometimes and I'm looking at the magazine going, how did that happen? How did this happen? So yeah, the book came about because people consistently asked me, could I please put my recipes into a book? I think even in this day of technology, cooks and bakers love to have a book. So that's how that came about. And I knew I had the group. I knew that certain people would buy it. But again, I suppose because I have an interest in social media, I have an interest in IT, I did plug it. I did constantly show snippets. I showed little bits of recipes. I showed pictures. So I tried to keep an interest going in it. So that basically the group, yes, did, bearing in mind that the book was published in the middle of COVID, so there wasn't a bookshop open. So I really had to rely on social media, and I had to rely on some type of exposure in magazines. And literally I sat at my laptop and emailed magazine editors, newspaper editors, and just emailed and emailed and emailed. And you know, one day one person would write back and go, do you know, yeah, we'll take that recipe. And you know, dance around the kitchen and then get excited and then go, okay, you know, do this. So the two things I would say are photographs. Most, if you have a good iPhone, your iPhone will actually have as good a high resolution as needed for photos for print. If you don't, just get a, you know, point and shoot camera. You don't need to get really, really expensive, and just make sure it's on a high res. That's what magazines and newspapers need. So, and nice pictures, if you can. So try and put background that may be related or not related, but just try and set it up and keep taking lots and lots of pictures and look at them critically and see. So that was my first thing. Pictures will get attention. And then the second thing is to find your, as I say, your SK, you know, your unique, your USP, your unique selling point. Mine was just that I basically took people by the hand and walked them through a recipe, made it simple. You know, it's Irish baking, Irish recipes for in Irish supermarkets to find the ingredients. So that was my sort of unique selling point. But other than that, it's I would love to say I know how it happened, but I don't. I'm massively amazed all the time.
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, you've done great. But you said there, I mean, there's work behind it too. It doesn't just happen.
No, no.
And there's probably a lot of emails that went out before one came back.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned to me once as well that, you know, somebody dropped out and they came to you last minute and you got a,
Yeah,
you
that was
know,
the Sunday
so,
Business Post, literally on a Thursday. And this is why I say about having photographs, taking them and keeping them on your laptop, because literally I got a call on a Thursday. I had been contacted by the editor before, and she had said that she couldn't promise anything, but she would try. And then 3 weeks later, I got a phone call on a Thursday saying, we're doing a Mother's Day feature. We'd really like something bright that you can do with your kids. Do you have something? So because I had the photograph and the recipe written out, I simply had to email it off and it was done. So I got a call that morning, that afternoon, she had all the information she needed. And on the Sunday Business Post published it in their Mother's Day edition.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
brilliant. Yeah, I suppose you were ready to go and you were prepared and they didn't have to wait around.
It's like you say, Rachel, there is background work to be done. There is. You do have to email regularly. You do have to have your little portfolio ready to go as such, maybe. And if it's not about, obviously mine is baking, so photographs and recipes, but even if you're writing poetry or you're writing a book, I think it's important to have a couple of documents with snippets of paragraphs that will touch somebody, whether it touches their heart or touches their mind or touches an emotion. Have those ready to shoot off with a nice picture of your book. Pay a photographer to take a picture of your book.
Yeah.
You know, I paid somebody just €180 or something or whatever to take front, back, and a couple of internal pictures. Have them ready to go, because editors love that.
Yeah, when you're ready, you make their life easier.
Absolutely, yeah. They do. Spoon feeding is huge. Spoon feeding. I don't think there's a spoon big enough made to spoon feed what needs to be spoon feed these days. You know, spoon feeding is what it's all about. Yeah.
No, you make actually such an interesting point, and one I haven't heard before, where it's like, if you think about all the stuff they have come in and all that they have to choose from, the ones that will stand out are the ones that actually make their life easier.
Absolutely. And bear in mind as well, people like yourself and people who are self-published like us, we don't have, you know, that Rottweiler publisher behind us, you know, who's in the know, who knows who to contact and, you know, owes them a favor. And Ireland's a very small country, you know, it's very incestuous. It's very, very small. So, you know, we don't have that sort of on our side. So we have to just constantly, as nicely as possible, bombard. Nicely as possible. I always think, you know, it's an old Irish saying, you'll catch an awful lot more with honey than you will with vinegar. You know, and it works.
Yeah, well, it's definitely worked for you anyway, whatever you're doing. And we talked briefly a little bit earlier about bookstores. So you're starting to make some progress there now that they're open. I suppose, is there any advice or that you would take from that experience that you might want to share with others?
Again, I feel that just because we're self-published doesn't mean that we're lesser. And I think don't accept what the the bookshop will come back to you initially with, maybe if it doesn't sit with you. If it sits with you, go with it, absolutely. But we had been speaking before about the sale and return. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, I'll take your book, but it's sale and return. So, you know, that's great. But I would go back and go with, you know, if instead of taking 15, if you take 7, would you pay me? So then you have money for 7 instead of a whole 15. So I just think, ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. So I've asked, and I, at the moment, I mean, again, I'm writing to bookshops all the time. And again, we're self-published, so I'm supporting independent bookshops as opposed to larger names, and saying to them, you know, can you do this? And back and forward, you can work something out. So I'd say be open, but don't be railroaded, and you don't have to go with something. If they want your book, that's great, but don't forget, if they don't want your book, so they're not going to agree to your terms, they're not going to sell your book for you. So if they want your book, they'll meet your terms, and then they will sell your book for you.
That's so true. Yeah. And then I suppose if we talked about the title of your book, it's a lovely title. Bacon from the Heart. Maybe you tell us a bit about that title or what that means for you.
For me, I suppose, as I said, I've always baked and cooked. It's something I've done all my life because it's part of our family. But we lost one of our children. That was my daughter that I was talking about earlier. So for me, I took to the kitchen. I found it's not even so much the baking. I found I needed structure. I needed to have a start, a middle, and an end to realize that, I could cope, that life was going to go on. I'm not saying anybody gets over anything, but you just pick up little tools that you need to get through today and then get up the next day. And by having baking, it just gave me a structure in my life. You can imagine that for the year before she passed away, it was 24/7. So when that is just plucked out of your life, you're left with this massive gap. So for me, that's why Bacon from the Heart was called, because it absolutely probably mended. No, it didn't, because it can never be mended. What it did was that it put little plasters over the hole in my heart. And that's what it did. So it would be lovely to think that maybe somebody else is a bit iffy over, for whatever reason they are having a bad day. If you even just go in and make some sausage rolls or make some scones, it doesn't have to be show-stopping masterpiece, just a sponge cake. You've made something and put all that love that needs to go somewhere has gone into it. And that for me is what it's about. Yeah, that's what it's about. So
that's so lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's such a lovely, beautiful, powerful message in so many ways. And I do appreciate you sharing that. I do think that's important, and to kind of meet, the person behind the book and behind the title, and to know, that that's your message, and for others, and it's, it's a positive message, and it is to kind of, it never replaces anything, but it does kind of bring something else into your life that can kind of help you get through something. So it can be therapeutic. It can be therapy. And I think we've moved, from the conversation at the start where, for me, it's such a daunting and fearful thing to actually, this can be a really beautiful part of your life and something you do. And, the benefit is you get a nice product, but it's the process of doing it. Maybe in some ways it's a bit of a mindful process. It takes your mind away from what else is going on and you channel creativity. It doesn't need to be perfect. And that's really nice. And
I think it's very important, a message to get to people that there is no such thing as perfection. I think the reason why maybe my recipes are popular is because I don't pretend that, you put it into a bowl, whisk it around and there it is. That's not the way it works. So I do say to people, you need to beat this for 4 minutes. Okay. I'm sorry, beat it for 4 minutes if you want a cake. And people say to me, oh, I can't pipe like you. Well, I couldn't pipe like that, 10 years ago, whatever. The only reason I know is because I do it. So sometimes, like you say, it's nothing is perfect. Absolutely nothing is perfect. I have failures in my baking like everybody else does. And I just have to learn where that failure, came from, why it didn't work. It could be something as simple as an out-of-date product. Could easily flatten your sponge as much as anything else. So it's just trying to stop taking the fluffiness that perhaps bacon has gone into a little bit in the last few years of this, whip this up with a pretty apron and look what I make. That's not the way it works. It is hard work. You do have to concentrate. You do have to put the effort in. But is there anything worth anything that you don't put an effort into?
Exactly. Yeah.
If you get something easy, I mean, any parent will tell you, if you don't teach your children that money doesn't grow on the trees, they're never going to have respect. We're told ourselves, everything we do, I think the harder you work, the more you just think, wow, so if you make a cake from scratch rather than a box, I think that you think, wow, I did this. So
You probably learn a lot of patience with baking as well.
I would be probably, I think I am, a lot of my friends would say I am a very patient person,
Yeah.
but I love process, and I love process. I do follow, rules. I won't be the one walking on the grass. But I do follow rules and I do things. So, but yeah, I probably do, follow it, and that's why maybe it's reasonably successful. My bakes tend to be better, work out well, maybe more often than not, but only because I like the process. But the process is what fixes a lot for me. The process is what lifts me on a day that I just don't want to speak to anybody. So that process is very important. So the fact that something that is in our lives and is accessible to all of us can help us, I'm not sure that we've really tapped into it as much as we should. You mentioned mindfulness, and people are telling you to take time out and do your yoga and do your meditation. But if you're making a recipe, you are being mindful. You are constant. So you've stopped that negativity in your head for the amount of time that you are creating a recipe. The negativity is gone. So you're doing the same thing, but you're getting a result then, and then you actually can share it with people that you love.
And isn't that lovely? That's that's the nicest part of food, sitting down with the family.
That's what it's all about. It's all about sharing. I mean, for me, that's what food is about. I think we had become a nation where we ate and ran, or we ate watching TV or whatever. But I think the sharing of the food thing, that's when people talk. That's maybe when, somebody might tell you something that, maybe they wouldn't have told you if you had a very quick meal and ran out the door. Yeah. So,
well, if I lived in your house, I would definitely be sitting around that table. For some of those,
very welcome, Rachel. Extremely welcome.
Yeah. No, it is true. I mean, I suppose I wrote a piece about this ages ago, but the fact that back in the day, sitting around the table was just the thing you did with food, and it was family time, and it was an important time. And now that's kind of shifted where, you can take your meal and eat it anywhere, but you're taking away that family. And there is something nice about that, that time.
We're told all the time that, we have to listen to our children, our spouse, our partner, whoever. We have to listen, we have to be there. But when are you going to be if everybody is rushing? So if you're sitting even for 45 minutes together, somebody's going to talk. Someone's going to say something. And that's when you listen. And because you're eating, it gives you time maybe not to react as quickly as you might. So you're absolutely right. That time of sitting with our family is massively important, because look, I had teenagers. They don't want to be in the same room as you. They do not want to breathe the same air as you, because you are so out of it. But when you're feeding them, they will talk to you. So you're giving them that opportunity as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. So in terms of then what's next for you?
Yeah,
I'd love to hear about
what's
that.
Next is that I think I was just spurred on a lot by people being so grateful that they could make stuff for their family again and for themselves. So I was asked by a few people who have different health issues to come up with recipes for them. So I started realizing that, people feel very excluded as soon as they're, listed. So what I've decided to do, and I've started working on it, is an inclusive baking book. So it's not just for keto or just for paleo or just for vegan. It's going to be, hopefully what I'm aiming is that it's going to be an inclusive book that says, look, here are the recipes, the basic recipes, and here is how this recipe can be gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, vegetarian, no refined sugar. This is how you do it. So yes, you can have the cake. Yes, you absolutely can. You just need to make these changes. And if you go to the supermarket, you just pick up the Flora plant butter. That's as simple as it is, to go from that. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, just a recipe book that is inclusive for everybody, with every type of, dietary need. And it's not just a dietary need that has been pushed on you medically, because obviously, my older son chose to be vegan. So, you know, I have to respect that. So I've been baking for him. So, you know, you have to just respect everybody's choices. So this is basically, look, whatever you want to do yourself with your food and your baking, I'm with you. Here's a book that you can find a few recipes to make.
That's lovely. Yeah, no, that's such a good idea to kind of give the base and then have the variety of options and let people, you know, let people choose which one they want and which one suits them. And you know, we all do have such different choices. And I know myself, I will take periods of time where I go off certain things. But you know, not long term, just to give myself my system a bit of a break. So it's nice to know there's a book there where when I'm on the break, I can have a recipe. When I'm not, you know, taking a break, I can have a recipe.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, look, I'm not an expert in any of the areas. I'm just a person who loves to bake and loves to feed people. I think I'm a secret feeder, but we'll keep that between us. But I feel very strongly that one of the reasons maybe why the last book was successful was because I made every single recipe in my own kitchen. There were no food stylists. There were no cameramen. There were no PR marketing people. There was just me. So I'm trying the recipes out for you. I'm finding issues with them. I'm hoping to find a solution and present you with something that you also can make in your kitchen. And that's all I want to do. Any photograph you see has been taken by me in my back garden, my front garden, in one of the bedrooms, wherever it may be. So none of this is sort of, I think it can be daunting when you see professionals whisking things up and throwing things together, and you know, they make something and the video shows, you know, 5 seconds here, 5 seconds there. I think people think that you can just put a mixer in and that it all comes together. That's not reality. So I think it's probably add a little bit of reality to it, maybe.
Yeah. Or when you're watching those shows and they have what we made earlier.
Yeah, and that was made by food stylists. That wasn't made by the chef, by the way. And I think that's something that we just need to be a bit more open about, is that 9 out of 10 times what you see has not been baked by that person that you follow. It's been baked by a food stylist. They then have another person who actually makes it look fantastic to take a photograph. They pour oil onto food to make it shine. So, you know, we don't have this, you know, we're just in our kitchen doing our best. And that's what I think I'm just trying to say. I'm in my kitchen doing my best. I'm going to try and fix this for you, and so that you can also do it.
And I think you've definitely achieved that with your book. So it's available on buythebook.ie, Baking from the Heart. And Soraya also has her own website, which is cozybakes.com.
That's it. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah. And yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I wish you just continued success with everything you're doing. I love your message. I love your story. I love your love for baking. And, you know, that at the heart of that is to, you know, to offer something to help people. And I picked that up from you straight away. And that's why I was kind of keen to do this little chat. You know, appreciate your time with it. So yeah, so look, best of luck with everything. And you know, I know we'll be in touch with each other.
Thanks, Rachel. I really appreciate the group giving me the time just to give the message. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, it's huge, and I am such a big fan of what you're doing with By the Book. I can't, the amount I've learned, and even just the positivity and the confidence that it has given me to push myself has been fantastic. So thank you for that, for doing that, because it's huge for us.
Yeah, no, you've been such a lovely part of the community, and I look forward to continuing to work together.
Brilliant.
And see where it goes. Absolutely. And yeah, so I'll say goodbye on that note.
Okay.
And yeah, thanks so much, Soraya.
Thanks a million. Thank you.